All right, they want to record me. So now I've got to be very careful about what I say.
Do we have to be?
All right. So this is our agenda, whether you like it or not. So basically what we're going to do, quickly talk about how to install the Zend Server on IBM I. And most of you may not need to do this, but it'd be interesting to understand how to do it. And by the way, if you can install Zend Server, you can install any licensed program product. They all work the same, okay? We'll talk about setting up the Zend Server from the standpoint of getting it to the point where you can turn it over to the developers. And then we'll do a little bit of work to set up the Zend DBI engine and do some modifications to it. And then the part that's probably most important here, creating the development worksite, and then work management. Work management we're going to talk about for about 3 seconds. Long enough for me to tell you to come to the session tomorrow at 5:15. That's when I'll dive into how to set up the memory and the disk and all of that stuff for the Zend Server. Okay, so tomorrow's sessions. I've been doing this for 35 years actually now. And how many of you have ever taken an IBM I certification exam? You're welcome. I'm one of the guys that helps write them. So there's a team of about 35 subject matter experts from around the world. I've written almost every single one of the IBM I certification exams, both the hardware, software, and the admin and the operations exams. So if you've taken those tests, you've seen a lot of questions I helped write. So let's talk about installing the Zend Server. First thing you got to do is download it. Now, our friends at Zend know all about PHP programming. What they don't know how to do is design a website. Okay? So when you...
Jim, don't hold back.
Who said anything about holding back? Now, Zev would probably walk up and smack me if he heard me say that, but the bottom line is it's true. You have to be very, very careful when you go to the download page and make sure that you put the download to IBM I. Otherwise, you are going to get Winders, and it won't work. Okay? Now, if you're unlucky enough to get one of the Unix varieties of the Zend Server, you actually could, if you played hard enough, get it to run. It won't work well, but you could get it to run. But you really need the IBM I version. And the reason for that is there's a couple of different pieces. Some of it runs in what's called PACE. Some of it runs in the traditional IBM I object space. So you need this one. Okay? And obviously you need to download the correct one for whichever PHP you happen to be using. So you need the Zend Server, and Zend is putting out releases at a clip that Rochester can't keep up with. I mean, IBM I used to come out on a clip of about every 2 years, right? Every 2 years we were doing an operating system upgrade of some sort. And the large user group went to IBM and said, stop that, right? Zend, for their part, comes out with a new version about every 60 days, it seems like. It's not really that fast. They used to PTF new functionality in, but they haven't been doing that recently. I think that's because they actually do deliver an awful lot of extra functionality every time they bring one of these out, so it deserves a new version. But they are coming out at a pretty good clip. So it'll be a challenge to keep up with them. Okay? Now, older versions do require some hot fixes, and particularly one older version requires you to put in the XML toolkit separately. All of that is packaged together now, so you don't have to worry about it. So if you need to download the older versions, you can get to them. In this particular case, if you download just the newest one, you get everything all encapsulated into one download. If you are using MySQL and you did not install it right away, you're in luck. All you can do is download the Zend DBI, which is the MySQL support for it, and you can load that separately if you so choose to. You have to download it, unzip it, push the save file over to IBMI, and then you can install it like any other licensed program product. You got to have some stuff on IBMI for it to run before you even think about it. And the installation does check for this stuff. Okay, so first off, at V7R2, the current PTF group for HTTP is, as of the 6th of this month, was 10. Okay? If you are not, I'm going to get up on my soapbox here for a second, folks. Most of the time when you call me into your shop saying, the system just isn't performing right, it's this, it's that, whatever the complaint happens to be, it's usually when I walk in and I see PTFs that are a year or 18 months old. And the first question I ask is, how old are the patches on your Microsoft stuff? Oh, well, we keep up with those every 30 days. Really? The box that's actually running your business, and you can't put PTFs on more than 3 times a year, right? Keep up with your PTFs. They will solve you a lot of problems, okay? Even IBM writes broken code occasionally, okay? So keep up with your PTFs. Minimally, these are the required software pieces that you need, all right? And then these are the options, and then you need the PTF groups. Now, be aware when you download HTTP, you also get Java. It is a large download, okay? The reason you get Java at the same time is when you download this HTTP group, you're also going to update the star admin server, which IBM provides for you. And that needs all the Java updates that go along with it, so you will get both. V7R1 is at level 35. I'm not sure, but they may have announced new ones here recently. Version 6.3 of Zend Server has some hot fixes, and you'll see those delivered as save files. They get applied like a PTF, okay? The one thing that I'm doing now that's not in the instructions, it's a little different from the instructions that IBM or Zend provides. I've started using my own library called Zend Save rather than the garbage pail to store things. Those of you who have been around the System 38 and on know that QGPL stands for Q garbage pail. And the reason for that is that's just kind of the default where all the junk gets dumped. So if you use your own library to keep the stuff, you'll be able to keep it segregated out. It'll be a whole lot simpler to A, clean up, and B, keep track of what you've got, okay? So here's an earlier version, 5.3, with all the fixes applied. So you've got the save file. Now Zend always delivers all their stuff with save files. You can apply PTFs and licensed program products from save files. You don't have to have the same type of file that IBM tends to use. So download it, and then you have to unzip it. Now, you can use a Windows zip utility, or you could go out to the Young Eye Professionals and get gzip and install that and use that to unzip it. By the way, once you've got that installed, you've now got complete zip and everything else that you would want, all the different compressions. FTP the Z save file over to the system. Now, again, I always use Zend Save. You could use QGPL. Now, here's a little trick. How many of you know to use that statement right there, quote site name format 1, from your PC? What that's doing is that's putting the IBMI into Unix mode for the FTP. If you don't do that, it's in library file format. So now the other thing that you do is you CD into wherever you're going to put it, QGPL or Zend Save. Notice the naming convention is a little different here. You have to fully qualify the name. Then you go binary and you do a put. If you do it this way, that save file does not need to exist prior to sending it over there. It will create a save file for you. If you mess up and forget to do the name format, when you do the put on that save file, it'll wind up looking like a database file and completely useless. Okay? So that's a little trick to the trade. We save ourselves a lot of time with that. Okay, so now all you need to do is start the restore process. So all you need is the restore license program product. That's the license program product name that Zend assigned to this a long time ago. Comes from a save file, and where is the save file? Hit the enter key and it'll start installing. So when you start the restore, the user profile you needs save sys, all object, and security administration. You do not need to be signed on as QSec offer. So now I'm going to step up on my soapbox for a moment. There is precisely one reason why you would ever use QSec offer as a user profile when you sign on to your IBM iBox, when IBM tells you to, and only then. Okay? Do not use QSec offer routinely. Reason: A, you can issue LBARSas, make a mess command in a real hurry with it. Okay? B, if you've got your own user profile set up with all the appropriate authorities, and you all know probably how to do that, you don't need it. And when you screw your own profile up, now you've got the lifeboat QSec offer to go to get out and fix it. You don't have to call me to recover your QSec offer user profile. And by the way, I charge various amounts of money for recovering the QSec offer profile based on how stupid you were when you busted it. The more stupid you were, the higher the price, right? So don't use QSec offer. I'll get down off my soapbox now. Creates profiles, libraries, directories, and a bunch of objects in there. Now what will happen is in the middle of the install process, it will switch over to a different user profile and go from there. So it's using the set user profile handle API at some point during the install. Okay? You'll see that screen. So it'll go. Now, every one of you has read that entire document, correct? Right? You all have, right? You all scrolled down, read all 74,000 pages of it. Yeah. Basically, it says if you're installing this, you have the permission of the person that owns the license to install it. So just, be aware of that. Then it will start taking on some processing, and you'll see this line right here similar to it. And that's showing you that it's processing a lot of files down in the IFS. Okay? And when it finally completes, two things ought to be. A, that number had better match that number. If it doesn't, there's a problem. And B, when you do your backup of that later, that number better match how many objects you back up, otherwise there's a problem there too. Then MySQL will come up, a screen just like that will come up and say, do you want me to put in MySQL? My strong suggestion is you just go ahead and smack the enter key and install it, regardless of whether you plan on using it or not. Okay? Why? My boss says we're going to use DB2 for all our Zend Server applications. Perfect idea. I support it wholeheartedly. MySQL is not a real database in my view. Okay? What's a real database in my view? One that has commit control. What are the only two databases on the planet that have commit control? DB2 and Oracle. Notice I did not say Microsoft. They don't have commit control. They have logging, not commit control. So anyway, I would go ahead and install it. Reason being that if you decide somewhere along the line you want to use any one of a number of these open source projects that are out there, now it's all there ready to go and installed for you. All you need to do is deploy the application from Zend Server, which is particularly simple to do nowadays, and away you go. Okay? During this, you'll see screens like this. It's being installed and configured. The work management objects are being created. It's successful, and okay. You get all of that, life is good. If you get CPF messages, life is bad. You'll have to go in and figure out what's wrong. Now, in the event that you get a CPF message, the first thing you do, sign off, sign back on, make sure that you've got those 3 authorities, and try and reinstall it. Chances are you will fix whatever the problem was. Failing that, then you're going to have to talk to that man right back there, Rod, and he will help you correct it. Okay, the installation will finish, and it will go ahead and start the Zend server. Now, the default port is well known. Now, the one thing you can do is you can change those ports that it comes up on, but nowadays, with the new Zend server, you've got to get way down deep into the IFS to change some of that stuff. So be careful about what you're doing. Just pay attention to where you're at in the IFS. And the reason they did that was a very good one. It's because when they deploy and pull back applications, they need to have the directory structure and set up in a specific way for them so that they can deploy and undeploy and then redeploy applications properly. And so that puts them way down into /user, Zend server, way down into the IFS in a way. You'll be able to find it. But now you got PHP running. So ZendDBI, if you need to install ZendDBI manually, there's your command. Change current library to ZMySQL and call that program, and it will install MySQL for you, okay? So if you've got a V5 installation, there are some Zend PTFs to put on there. I highly recommend you've got them on there. If you haven't got them on there, you probably got broken stuff, and you'll need them, okay? So we got to set up the server. So you sign on, and how many of you have actually done this? Few of you, okay. So agree to the license agreement, and then pick your server profile, production or development, and whichever one you need, press the next key. Then you fill in this information for the password. Now, one's for admin and one's for developer. Yay to Zend for finally doing that. So I've got one profile for the admin so the admin can protect the server itself. Then another one for the developer so you developers can get in there and do something. Now, soapbox time again. What is the system administrator's #1 job? You were partially right. Protect the system from the developers. The developers break things, okay?
As a developer, I create a website-specific user, so I know the website's making changes.
Yeah.
The web server.
So what's the developer's #1 job? Not break the system. The developer's #1 job is to protect the data from the user, right? So if you keep it in mind, now you know why I like this. So pick consequential passwords there. Zend server is probably a bad password. All right. I might guess it right away.
I don't suppose Nimda is okay.
What's that?
Nimda?
Well, if you want. Okay. Now it shows the library packages, and when I happen to have pulled this screen, this is what was available at that point. Most of the folks that I know have used Zend Framework 2 now. Very few have gone with the others. The other one that I see being used is Symfony. So go ahead and put in your order number and your license key, which have been provided by Zend. Okay? At that moment, your server is ready to go. If you don't do that, in 30 days, it's going to go back to the basic license that IBM has paid for you. Okay? And then you lose all the goodness of the Zend server. All it does is serve up PHP, which is useful in its own right. Okay? It's a good thing, but what's the point, right? So go ahead and get a license from Zend for your installation. Okay, so how do you set up more stuff? So the other thing you do here is you get into your admin server, or you go into the 1080, and I tweak the HTML just a touch. It brings up, notice that it says Agile Zend Server is up and running. That's because the index.html is where you would expect it in /www, work your way down in there. All right? Now, the default directory is www.zendserver6htdocs or Zend Server htdocs, depending on which version you're at. And most of the pages are resolved from there. However, when you start doing deployments and whatnot, then you get down into that /user/Zend Server myriad of directories that will drive you to distraction. Now, when you finally find that list of directories that you're at, consider putting some symbolic links in there so that you can CD into them without having to remember them. Right? Just make life a little easier on yourself. Zend won't maintain them for you, but at least now you've got a symbolic link into that list of directories that you've got. Okay? Here's the initial screen, all HTML. I use the IFS editor. How many of you know and like VIM? Did you know you can put VIM on IBM I and it works really well? Okay. Just go out to Young IP Professionals and follow the instructions. In fact, most of the AIX binaries, which level is it? The AIX binaries. Yeah, but most of the AIX binaries will run under PACE. So you can go ahead and put them out there. The ones that definitely will not work are the ones that actually touch hardware. Guarantee they're not going to work, right? But it freaked out a guy when I was in SSH and actually issued the top command on an IBM I, and it came up and showed him all the stuff. And that's because we've got all of that stuff in IBM I. So if you've got Unix brethren that just can't stand this box, give them the AIX interface and they'll be happy. All right. MySQL. Set the root password for MySQL. Install and configure the database engine, and then you can go from there. Now, I'll save the comment for later. Allows MySQL to store data in DB2. Why would you want to do that? Okay. MySugar CRM, you're right. MySugar CRM is sitting in DB2, not in MySQL, because I did what I'm about to show you to MySugar install. Now, when I want to correlate my customer records to what's in the CRM, all I have to do is write SQL to do it. It's all in DB2. I don't have to connect to MySQL to do it. Okay. And of course, if you're going to use open source applications, it's a requirement because a lot of those are written for MySQL, right? So, to complete the installation, you have to set up 3 different root profiles in MySQL. Now, here's one of the biggest problems I've got with MySQL. It's hard to manage, as opposed to DB2, which is too simple. Okay? So you've got 3 profiles to manage, and you first have to sign on to MySQL. Now, I use PuTTY to access it from SSH to get at my system to do most of this stuff. It's needed when you use Zend Studio anyway, so you might just as well go ahead and get a copy of PuTTY. do be sure that you go to the correct spot to get it. If you're not getting it from the root, which is Mr. Gatham's site, there's a very good chance you're getting a copy of PuTTY, which has been modified with keystroke monitors and all of those sorts of things so that they can steal your system. Sir?
At our shop, there's this really nice tool means Commander, CMDPR, and it's a full-blown Unix terminal for Windows.
Yeah, you can use other things.
Well, I just like it because you can drop Unix-based commands like SSH or top or whatever you call them to the bins, and you can even use it through a flash drive, so you can
Yeah.
these
There's other ways to do it. My other favorite way to do it, by the way, is ordinarily you're seeing me use a Surface Pro 3 right now. My real computer is a Mac. Okay? And there all you do is go into the command line, do SSH and connect, and you're done. Okay, so two ways to do this. You can go into the ZS menu, Zend DBI management, and start the Zend DBI daemon. And then if it gets going, life is good. You can use the SSH or QP2 term interface. Now, QP2 term and start QSH are two different environments, sorta. They really get it down into pace, but they do give you different environments slightly. So be careful with that. I always just use SSH. You'll get the, do you want to use this certificate? Yes. And away you go. So, MySQL is a symbolic link. That's what it really stands for. So what I'll do then at that point is I'll start it in safe mode with that command. And now the MySQL version will show you the version of the server and everything else that you've got. Now, the one difference is that'll start the MySQL daemon and queue user work. And there I show an example of it. This is the MySQL daemon running right here. And notice it's running in queue user work rather than in the IBM, the supplied subsystem that Zend created for you. And that's simply because of the different way you started it. That's instructive because if you've got other pace-based applications, that's how they're going to start. Okay? So, first thing you do is MySQL admin, change the root password to something. In this case, I used common 2. And you change the local host password because MySQL will have an attachment to various different systems. So I always make sure that I get all the systems, local host, the IP address, and the base. Okay? So then once you've done that, you then sign on with MySQL, your root, enter your password, and then you can show the databases. And there they are. So then use MySQL. MySQL is the database where the MySQL stuff is there. So there's 3 changes in there. Again, you have to change the local host 127.0.0.1 and the name of the server. In this particular case, that's my HA server. Okay? This guy happens to be running Power HA. So I go in there and I set the password on all 3 of those. By the way, if I install a system for you, guess what password I'm going to use? You're welcome to go in and change it as soon as I take my hands off the keyboard. That follows up with most of the rules that you guys come up with. Sometimes we have to throw a capital letter in there. Okay? So now I've got root set up so that he can attach to MySQL no matter what. And if you do a select user password host from user, you can see that it's set up. And you can see that at least 2 of the passwords are identical. The third one for localhost isn't quite the same. And I did that on purpose, by the way. All right? It depends, which one you need to use depends on where you're authenticating to MySQL from. Okay, if you're authenticating from outside, then you need to use the host name, this one. If you're authenticating from the system itself, you could use localhost or 127.0.0.1. So MySQL is now up and running and life is good. Okay, so how do we get the DB2 engine in there? So the first thing you need to do is shut it down. So MySQL admin, shut down. That will stop the instance that's running in queue user work. Okay? The smart thing then is to go back into the Zend Server menu and start it up with that. So the next thing you do is you sign on, again with the root password that you just set, and then you issue this command, this install plugin, IBM DB2 ISO name. Where the hell did they come up with that, Tony? Or did you come up with that?
No, I didn't come up with it. I think it was a standard from Oracle or something.
A standard from Oracle? Okay. Whatever it is, it's...
Well, I mean, yeah, not Oracle before that.
Yeah, the .so files are all storage engines definitions.
Yeah, I just think it's arcane. But then again, most open source people build things to be arcane, so they're complicated, so they're the only ones that understand them.
The front part, the .so part always being shared out.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the command that you install it, and it's already there because Zend has already put it there. And then if you do a show plugins, you'll see that there it is. And it's active and ready to go. Okay? Next. Now, Zend delivers my PHP admin, is that the name of it? I think. And that will do exactly what I'm about to show you just as easily and just as well as this. I'm showing you adminer simply to show you that something else will work as well. Okay? So I'm not advocating one or the other, I'm simply showing you a different way. Okay, so you go out to adminer.org, pull it down, install it. It's one PHP file. Guess what? What do you have to do to install it? Drop it into the directory and run it. Okay? So bring it on up and do your download. And then if you drop it in the correct directory, which is in www.server.htdocs, away you go. I renamed them adminer and editor just to make it easier. Okay, so then that's how you get to it. By the way, my firewall stops anything that's not 80 or 443, right? 1992. So go ahead and try this, it won't work. Most of the rest of the stuff will, but this won't. So I sign on, and again I need the root profile that I set up a moment ago. And we use adminer to create a database, create a table, and assign the data engine. Those are the 3 steps that you need to do. If you've done this before, total time to get this done is about 60 seconds. Okay, that's assuming your system is slow. So the first thing you do is come down here and select a database. Go into create database, I created Agile, okay? And away you go. You come over here, show databases, there it is. Okay, works fast. Can you do this manually, the command line? Certainly. Sure you could. Okay. Then I use adminer to create a table. Now, you can use the graphical interface and fill in all the columns if you wanted, or you could just drop some SQL in here. Now, what's the difference in this SQL that I would use here versus what I would normally use in DB2? This is a trick question, by the way. This will work, and work well on DB2. Earlier, we were talking about CCSID hell, were we not? Okay? The one thing I will always do if I'm going to create databases that are going to be used by Zend Server, I will always assign a CSID to the table itself and to the columns. Okay? That just eliminates a whole lot of trouble. If your system is running the default CSID, 65.535 is it, I think, right? And you said, you know what, I really want my system to be running at 37 US English. So you go out and change the system value. Please try that on test system first, because there are applications that will not react well to that, okay? And as much as I love rebuilding systems for customers, you hate paying me to do it. okay? Especially when you're down for a while. So test it before you do that. That's the only thing I haven't put in here, and the reason is because MySQL has no idea what a CSID is, okay? Note that there's a little edit button there, and you can run that, and away you go. So there's my table. Describe customer master, there it is. Life is good. Notice it's using the ISAM engine, and Latin Swedish. I'm not sure why the Swedish came up there when I did this demo, but it did. Okay. Is that the default? Okay. So then I come up here to the data engine, change it to IBM DB2, right? Enter it and hit the enter key. Okay, now do a work live PDM. Agile, in this particular case, because we named it Agile, will show up as a database, as a library, actually, more accurately, as a collection on your system. Now I go over to the CustMaster and I set the DB2 engine for that. Note I always change it to Latin_bin. Don't know why, I just do. And save that, and suddenly the customer master shows up in DB2. Now in other presentations I go into DBU and or DFU, change the data and show you that in fact I changed it in both MySQL and in DB2. You'll just have to take my word for it that they're both reading the same thing at this point. So we've installed Zend Server and MySQL, we've verified that it's running and all that good stuff. What's next? Create a development site. All of you like to develop on the production website, right? I got news for you, most of you do.
You'll change that for us, aren't you?
Huh?
You'll change that for us, right?
I will if you ask me to. Classic example of developing on the production website. Okay, so here's how you can do this, and this is an old Unix trick. Okay, each developer will have their own library directory and web address. Security is your call. You can set it down as you would so choose. Production runs on a different LPAR on port 8443. Your instance is running on 10,080. Okay? Now, Zend does not currently support running multiple copies of Zend Server on one system. One of my pet peeves. But there's very little reason why they can't, but they do have good reasons why they don't. It will take an uprising of all of you to make them do it. So at this point, we're stuck with one server instance. The main site, so you've got everything all set up. So now, what you do is you want to set up a home directory for every user. So underneath /home, set up a directory. That's where you're going to store all of your stuff that's in the IFS, each developer. Okay? If you use if you set the authority up for these two profiles to look just like that, like I've got it set here, you'll be in good shape. Notice I've got public exclude. Okay? Public exclude stops other folks from getting in there who do not have the appropriate authority. Could be used if you want it to be, but you know, I'm just a traditionalist. Copy the htdocs directory from the Zend install in there. And basically the reason you're doing that is you're getting the .htaccess file and all of this stuff, which is important for Zend framework and all of that. Now I believe Alan has come up with a better, more efficient version of this, have you not?
Yeah, the problem with this standard one is that when you get a 404 that is a file not found, that the web server thinks it's a PHP request and you're just some kind of stamp coming in.
Right.
So, yeah, there's
You can modify that and then talk to Alan if you want the updated one. Yes, sir.
There's also one really big thing that Zend Server does that annoys me in their default, and it's cut keep alive off. And that keep alive will cut your efficiency down big time in page load, because your user is going to handshake every single time they refresh the page.
That's true.
So
So this is the default. You can modify this to your to your liking. If you really need insomnia relief, okay, there's multiple ways to get it, but the best way I can think of is go out and look at the Apache rewrite rules. They are long, they are arduous, and they will put you to sleep in a real hurry. Okay? Makes Ambien look like nothing. So it's arduous. All right? So here's a little control language program that creates this entire environment. That's how simple it is. Okay? Now, I don't have, in this particular code snippet, I don't have any of the error handling and all the rest of that stuff. This program is actually about 150 lines long, but you can figure out what you need to do. Basically, you create library, you make a directory, you do some copies, create a user profile, change the ownerships, and boom, you're done. So if you need to create a new web user, there's your program. Okay? So now we're going to show you the Apache setup. So now we go over to the admin instance of IBM I Navigator. And you go to Internet Configurations and the Web Administration for I. Now, if you're really intrepid, you can go down into the IFS and edit this directly if you wish to. All right? But this interface does have some error handling in it so that it will help you in the event that you mess up. A good example of going in and editing directly, when I add things to the DNS server, I'll go directly into the file and add them for the DNS server because it's just bind 9, and not use the graphical interface because it's too slow. This is one of those cases where I'll use the graphical. So you come down here, you edit the configuration file for your server, and you add precisely one line. User directory /home / *htdocs. Save it, restart the server, and you're done. Okay? Now, whenever they want to sign on, they'll use that URL right there, tilde user profile name. And they'll get their own website. That's how easy it is to do. So if you are stuck with a single LPAR or a situation where you want, on your test LPAR, you want everybody to not be colliding, this is one way to do it. Okay? By the way, this is a real server. It does run several businesses that I own at this point. So this isn't something that I'm just telling you to do. I actually do it myself. And I hire developers from a local college, two-year college, to do most of my development for me. Okay? Pay them $10 an hour. They're happy as sin to get the $10 an hour and some professional help in doing their development, and they get to put it on their resume, and I get pretty high quality code out of it. Okay? So, V7R2 changes the directives below. Why? At V7R2, they brought you up to the current version of Apache. At V7R1, you were running a very old version of Apache. As V7R2, they brought you to a new version of Apache. In the new version of Apache, Apache Foundation changed the way that they did security. This is a positive change. It's a good thing. Okay? But V7R1 has been out for how long now? Anybody got a guess? 3 years, you're wrong. Keep going. It's actually been out for 5 years already. And they only killed V6R1 support last month. Okay? So they only changed the Apache version with a version of the operating system. Okay, they're loath to do it in the middle, and Tim Rowe has good reasons for not changing it with a PTF because that would break stuff, and IBM doesn't generally break stuff on you when you apply a PTF, okay? So here's your new configuration for the directory that you're going to need in terms of the authorities. That's the old configuration, ordered, allow, deny, right? You've all played with that before. In the event that you cannot go in there and change all of your stuff, it's really simple when you do your upgrade to V7R2, just add that mod access compat module to your system, and IBM supplied that. And basically what they've said is, we don't want to break anything, so we'll let you run with the old security model. So basically that's all that does. Okay? And then over time, convert that to that. And then you can take that module out. Again, work management we're not going to talk about today. Tomorrow at 5:15 in, I think it's next door here. It said room 7 on the original website that went out. But is Artist 7? 6? Artist 6 now? Okay, yeah. Zend is almost as good at changing room numbers and places as Common is. All right? When I go to Common, I always have to look up immediately to see which room I'm going to be in. And yes, I've gone to the wrong room because the agenda has been wrong. So we'll talk a lot about work management during that time. And what we're going to talk about in there is how to set the memory pools for both the Apache server and for the Zend server and assign the appropriate memory so that it will run efficiently. The one thing IBM does when they deliver a system, if you take your system and you load the operating system and all the licensed program products and you dump your application down on it, IBM I will run it without change. Okay? It'll run it very badly, but it will run it. No other system on the planet can make that claim. It will run your applications, but what you need to do is get in and do a bunch of work management to fix things. Now, if you, one of the things we're going to do is talk about how to move all the SQL out of Starbase so that you're not running all your SQL in Starbase. Those of you who know Starbase know that that's the default memory for everything that goes on in IBM I, and that's probably a bad place to run I/O. In fact, I can guarantee you it is. I will also show you how to make the Apache server and the Zend server run in their own memory pools. Now, how important is that? I was at a customer in the Southwest, and they were running everything in default manner as delivered by IBM and Zend. And they had reasonable response time. They were using tablets out in the field, and the response time was reasonable. Okay? We moved this stuff into its own memory and tuned up the memory, and they started getting sub-second response time at their tablets. So it wasn't the application, it was the system. I did lie about one thing. We did lay down a few DB2 indexes to assist some of the queries, okay? But for the most part, with a little bit of tuning, we took the application that these guys wrote and made it react pretty well. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. So, we installed Zend Server on an IBM I system. We configured and started Zend DBI. We ran some open source tools. We set up individual developers' websites. Long ago in a planet far, far away, I used to turn around and then go into how to set up Zend Studio so it would actually connect. There is some unnatural acts you have to do to get SSH running and get it running well, especially if you're not going to use FTP for Zend Studio. So I did go through that, but it turned out that that was just too much. And Mr. Mike said, Jim, knock it off. Right? Don't do that anymore. So that's another topic that we could go into. And there's how you get a hold of me. Please write down that address. If you want a copy of this handout, I will email it to you. I have a tremendous aversion to putting my slides out on SlideShare. I just don't believe in it. And this particular conference doesn't provide a download spot. So if you send me a note, I would be happy to send you the handout. By the way, there are a lot of slides that I didn't show you. they're in there. They're included along with them. So, we've had quite a journey. I'll go all the way back so you can get the, I didn't put the LinkedIn. I'm getting there. There it is, the joined in site. So you can go out and please do the evaluations. We do look at them. Every speaker I know values what you have to say, positive and negative. So we do want to hear it. And I thank you for your attention, and I hope I taught you something. Thank you. Questions?
This might be a weird question, but I noticed when you did individual developers, we had an idea at one point to use different ports for each one. Good or
Okay.
bad?
Here's the question that was just asked. One of the ways that they thought of to do individual websites for individual developers was to assign a different TCP/IP port number to each one of them. That works right up until you get other applications that decide they want to use those ports. So if you're going to do that, I suggest you get up into the 60,000 range when you assign the ports, because the odds of anybody picking a port up in the 60,000 range are near zero. I've never had a collision up there when I do that. It's workable. You can do that. Nothing stopping you from setting up a virtual host on a different port. Other questions?
Our sysadmin won't let us use SSH. It's not a true sysadmin.
Your sysadmin will not let you use SSH.
Yeah, to connect to our Unix on the IBM server. It's a serious fire.
I haven't a clue why. You can't do any more damage with SSH than you could do with a green screen interface.
Yeah, I want to avoid that.
So I think in the end, it's one of two things. Either he doesn't want to set up the firewall to handle those ports, right? Or he has no clue what it does.
Maybe both.
Maybe a little both. Okay?
Is your slide, your full one?
Have him give me a call. I'll walk him through what to do it. Okay? Now, how do you start the SSH server if you need to? Start TCP server space splat SSD. SSHD. You're right. I'm sorry. Now, if you go to stop the SSH server, what's the appropriate command to do that? End TCP server. By the way, be really, really, really careful when you enter that command. What's the default for end TCP server? Star all. You are not a system administrator until you have done that at least once. Okay? By the way, if you're not on the console, when you enter that command, you know immediately, because one of the first things that goes down is the telnet server. And you've just hosed yourself, all right? I was at a customer down in Florida once, and I did that on their production box. And the president of the company heard on the other side of the building. She comes walking out and says, "What happened?" "I just screwed up. Never mind, I'm fixing it." Right? Brought everything back up. So do be careful with that NTCP server command. You will at some point screw it up. Any other questions? Great. Thanks, guys.
Everybody's on email address. I got that far.
ARCH.com.
RCH. Thank you.
Yep. By the way, if you missed my email address, just go out to Midrange L, and I'm on Midrange L quite a bit as well.